welcome to Rise. I am Nunaisi, your host, and today I am so excited. You are up for a treat with Amrita Grace. She's a dear friend and a colleague, and she will dive into sacred sexuality. And before we start, I want to introduce you officially to Amrita. She is a visionary leader in the feminine sexual empowerment re-evolution and co-founder and director of the Sacred Feminine Mystery School. She's the award-winning best-selling author of several books, including Reclaiming Aphrodite, The Journey to Sexual Wholeness, a certified spiritual sexual educator, and ordained high priestess. Welcome, Amrita.
Oh, thank you so much, Nunaisi. It is always such a delight to be with you.
Same here. I know that you hold the torch for so many women to awake into their life force energy, and I can't wait to dive into this yummy, juicy subject that I find of such importance, as you know.
Yes, very, very important. One of the most important things in life, I think.
Right. And before we start, I would just like to invite you to maybe share a personal story that brought you onto this path.
Yes, I would be happy to do that. So coming from childhood sexual abuse, that manifested for me into being over-sexualized as an adult. And a lot of women go the other direction. They freeze up or they shut down. But I went hypersexual. And the reason I did that was so that I could be in power. That was how I felt my power. And I had a lot of life force energy. And so I used that life force and sexual energy to feel powerful. And I did that for a long time through 2 marriages that were woven with addiction and codependency, until I finally realized that I wanted something different. I wanted a life that was real, that my heart was part of, because I'd cut myself off from my heart. So I chose to heal, and I found my way into sexual healing, which is an incredible gift to anyone who finds their way to it, because I had done years of therapy, which was very helpful on many levels, but ultimately did not help me heal and maintain well my sexual energy. So I started on that path of sexual healing, which has brought me nothing but the most amazing gifts and benefits and treasures into my life, including the beautiful, beloved relationship of 13 years, and just so many gifts as I head towards my 60s. I mean, I'm going to be 59 this year, and I just feel like I'm about 40. So having access to so much life force and using it to feed my health, my vitality, and my emotional body has landed me in a beautiful and very fulfilling life that I'm super grateful for. And it's also become my sacred work.
So beautiful. You definitely radiate in that light. So well done for all that you do. And, you know, this is a subject that is very close to my heart because, as you know, and some of the people that follow me, I also have been sexually abused as a child. And I went the other way. I was completely disconnected from my body, completely frozen. And it took me years to heal and to become whole again. So I know the power in this journey of healing sexuality and what a gift it is when the energy is flowing freely in the body. So yeah, I really thank you for the sacred work that you do. And would you like to share a little bit about what you offer and the work that you actually do?
Sure, I would love to do that. So after my experience with all of that therapy, I found that talking about our issues can only do so much. What I really needed was somatic therapy. I needed therapy of the body. And I think a lot of people who work with the body, like massage therapists and energy workers, there's a very strict rules about working with sexual energy and the pelvic region. These are areas not to be touched. But if these areas are not touched or attended to in a loving way, in a healing way, then how are we supposed to heal them? So when I found my way into sexual healing, I found my way to Caroline Youre and the Divine Feminine Institute. And what she was teaching was sacred sexual awakening and healing. And at the time, it was the fully clothed work that I teach now hadn't even evolved yet. So it was internal work. It was touch inside the yoni, and that can be very intimidating for people, very intimidating. And she evolved this fully clothed energy work where the pelvic region and the lower chakras, the lower energy centers of the body, are included in the healing without removing clothes. And oh my gosh, this is a revelation. It's a revolution in sexual healing work because it makes it accessible for people of all genders, all ages. And it's all done with safety and permission and consent. And essentially by receiving this kind of touch to all of the body, including the lower energy centers, and breathing and releasing sounds instead of thinking it all through or talking about it, is a powerful and very rapid way to release energy that's been stored in the body. Because when you start to access and release energy, time takes on a different meaning. Things can be moved, years worth of stuff can be moved out in minutes. So this is nothing short of miraculous, this fully clothed work. And this is the foundation of what I teach. And even the foundation underneath that is presence. And presence is a word we all know, but do we know what it means? So I decided that because presence is so important to this work, that if I'm teaching and the women are working in groups of 3, because that's how we present this work, and I'm guiding them through it, the one who is in that role of the facilitator needs to be fully present with herself and with the other, with the woman who is receiving, because she's not there to do anything. She is there to hold a space and essentially be empty. There's nothing that she needs to send, nothing that she needs to accomplish, and there's no agenda. And when that presence is available, the person who's receiving can move a tremendous amount of energy within her own experience. No one's expecting anything in particular from her, except to invite her to breathe and to feel and to make sounds. This is so ridiculously simple. And yet sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. It's deceptively simple. So I bring this particular body of work called Sacred Sexual Awakening and Healing to women in in-person workshops, both weekends and longer retreats. And I've done my best to also bring it online where I needed to and where I could. And that has helped to create a foundation as well. But really, my sacred work is to be with groups of women and guide them through in groups of 3 this experience of this incredible sexual healing and awakening work. Because once you clear what's stored, there's an awakening that happens and contributes so much to how you show up in all of your relationships.
I couldn't agree more. You know, you're talking and I've got these waves of energy moving through my body because I know that healing is simple. It's not easy. It's not always easy, right? Because we have to process some emotions, but it's always simple. There's nothing complicated about healing. And really, you've been touching about somatic healing, and that is key. I found that to be really the key for shifting, you know, stagnant energy. And I always say that it is in relationship that we get hurt, and it is in relationship that we get healed. And so having that group of women and being witnessed by another woman and being accepted and having that space held in safety, this is really how the healing happens. And yeah, I want to encourage each and every one of you to really understand that once you heal your sexual energy, not only that you open yourself up to joy, bliss, and ecstasy, which is really your divine birthright, but it is more than that. It is your life force energy that is everything that you do, everything that you are. You cannot separate your sexuality from who you are, right? Sexuality is more than sex. It's how you express yourself. It's how you create in the world. It's all your relationships. It's who you are. So yeah, I love what you just described. And do you want to maybe add a little bit more about sexuality?
Sure, absolutely. So as children and even as teenagers, there are so many attitudes that are handed down to us through how we're raised, through how we're taught, through especially religions, and the shame that's heaped on us. These are things that don't just go away when we get into our first sexual relationship. In fact, they're magnified. So what we want to do is we want to take all that stuff that we've stuffed probably down into our pelvis, into our womb space, into our yonis, and we want to access it and release it without having to rehash it. And it's really not necessary to rehash or relive any of it. When you can access your voice, and this throat is so connected to your yoni, to your genitals, and you get a direct channel where you can release all that stuff, can just start pouring out in sounds that don't make any sense, that are primal. And that just ignites that flow of your life force. And once you've got access to that and you learn how to be in integrity with your sexual energy, that was a big piece for me as an over-sexualized teenager and young adult. I had to learn to be in integrity with my sexual energy and not spill it out all over the place and pour it on people. And I mean, people would sometimes take a step back when I came toward them. That's how big my energy was and how intense it was. Well, that's not how I want to go through life, right? I have big energy and I have a big energy field. So I want to know how to be in integrity with that, how to be contained with it without holding myself back. And that's really been the dance. So once you've got access to that life force energy, all of a sudden you've got access to a healing elixir that is free, it's readily available, and it's completely abundant. It never runs out. It's just that we cut ourselves off from it. So getting access to that and letting it flow through your body gives you the opportunity to heal yourself of many kinds of ailments. I healed myself of breast cancer very quickly. And to also heal your relationships. So in my particular situation, I mentioned I'm in my late 50s and I'm in an incredible, beautiful, beloved relationship. And yet menopause and breast cancer has taken a terrible toll on my libido. And yet I still have attraction, I still have life force, I still have desire. It just doesn't manifest so much in my body and my yoni. Yet I have the capacity to work with what I have and have still a beautiful cultivating, an ongoing cultivation of a beautiful, intimate relationship with my husband. And I'm not saying it's always been easy, but because we can talk about it, there's no shame. I'm not down on my body. I'm not getting down on myself or blaming my body for not being what I want it to be. I'm working with my body and I'm creating something that is very intimate and very deep and very connected without it necessarily being all about the kind of sex that I might have had as a teenager or a young adult. And in some ways, it's better because it's more deeply connected. There's eye contact and there's things are slowed down and there's attention to detail. There's attention to where our bodies connect all along the way. And it's beautiful. It has an incredible beauty to it. So I know I work with a lot of women who are in relationships and their relationships are not even sexual anymore. They basically have become roommates, and it's so common. And part of it may be because as they've aged, it's become painful for them to have intercourse, and that's a thing that can come with menopause as well. And yet there are ways to work with that too. But what it comes down to is it's basically much more here than it is in our pelvis. It's much more about letting go of the shame of having conversations about it and of being in partnership with our bodies first and foremost before we're in partnership with the body of another. And to really learn how to use that life force energy to expand so many possibilities.
Can you expand on the possibilities? Because this is also a subject that I would like to dive into, how to utilize this sexual energy to really create a life we want and a life we love.
Yeah. So one of the pieces that I anchor into with this, and I talk about a lot, is how important it is to learn how to receive. This is something that we are not taught. We are taught that it's better to give than to receive. That comes down from the religions. And that's also what we're, especially as women, taught. We are the givers, we are the doers, we are the caretakers. But you know what? That's really out of balance. So this is a learning, a big, huge learning that I've had in my own life, because part of my being in control was I'm the giver, I'm the doer, I'm the one in charge. And I think that that's just become very, very embedded in our culture. And yet, if you don't know how to receive, how on earth can you receive what you desire if you even know what it is? So I think this is a piece that really stops people and shuts them down, is the not knowing how to receive and not knowing how to learn how to receive. So this is the beauty of the work in groups of 3 or triads, is that there's no direct reciprocation. The roles, each woman gets to experience each of the roles of facilitator, receiver, and sacred witness, but it's not a direct exchange. So there's a built-in learning how to receive, and it's scary. It's really scary for women to be in that surrendered role. It's vulnerable because all of a sudden they're not in charge anymore. They're not running the show. And that's how we have stayed safe, by being in charge. Vulnerability can feel really intimidating and scary. And yet, when the space is safe and there's integrity in the space and there's really careful instruction and guidance, there's an opportunity to relax into that and experience receiving, to practice receiving by experiencing it. and letting yourself have it be all about you and whatever it is that you need moment by moment. And that is profound. Again, it sounds really simple, but it's incredibly profound, because when we can learn to receive, and this is part of the expansion of getting access to life force energy, when we can receive our own life force energy, then we really have an opportunity to get supported in ways we maybe never have been. And I want to share a little story here to illustrate this. Because I had that attitude of I'm in charge, I've got this, I'm independent, I don't need anyone, I've just got it all. I brought that into my first 2 marriages, and it didn't really serve me very well. I was pretty much of a control freak, and I just tried to control everybody else's lives as well as my own. That doesn't work out so well, and nobody enjoys that. So when I finally started down my healing path, I still had a ways to go about learning to receive. And I got into a new relationship that I consider to be a very blessed transitional relationship. And in that, I began to learn how to receive from my partner. And I can't say I learned all the lessons right then and there, because there were more to go. But that person taught me some things about receiving when we went together on a 1-month-long trip to New Zealand in a camper van. And I had very little money. And he was doing just fine financially. So I insisted that we should split everything, because that was the only way I could feel like I had control. And yet there was no way possible for me to do that. I couldn't meet him there. So I began to slowly open up to receiving. It was uncomfortable at first, very uncomfortable. The lessons continued when I met my beloved, and also was diagnosed with breast cancer a few years later. And this is a big lesson in learning to receive. But even more than the breast cancer, I think I was already doing pretty well with receiving by then. To know that abundance can come through receiving, including financial abundance. I've had to learn, coming from this background of Protestant work ethic, the harder you work, the more money you make. That is BS. That is so not true. And so I learned that I can receive the support that my partner offers to me and feel abundant through that as I build my business from the bottom up. And so that was really my path of learning to receive. And I feel like this is a very overlooked aspect of healing work. And really, to be able to heal, you've got to be able to receive, and to be able to expand, you've got to be able to receive, and to be able to be truly abundant in every possible way, got to be able to receive.
Thank you for that. I actually saw my own journey through what you just shared, and this is so true. You know, we as women, you know, the feminine energy that we have predominantly as women is about receiving. And yet, I think in our society, because we have been worshiping the masculine energy for so long, which is the doing part and the giving part, I think that it kind of ties into self-worth almost, right? If I give, then it means I'm worthy. And if I receive, it means maybe I'm weak in some ways. So, you know, to change that paradigm and to create that balance between the ability to give and also the ability to receive is so very important. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this really kind of leads us into the balance of masculine and feminine energies within ourselves, or the divine marriage. It's so important that we have access to that masculine energy to get things accomplished and to do what life requires of us. And we need to call in the balance of the feminine so that we know when to rest, and we know how to receive, and we know that we can be nurtured as well as be nurturing. Because if we're always giving and always doing, we burn out. There's just full stop. We burn out. We can't continue. So it's vital to balance these energies within ourselves and learn how to access what we need when we need it, when it's time to rest and when it's time to recline and just appreciate the beauty of life or nature, then that's an incredible time to call forth the feminine within us. And I admit that it can be very challenging for somebody like me, who's very type A, who's very has been a workaholic in her life, and going and going and going all the time is its own escape, is its own way of hiding. So when we slow down, we start to feel, and that alone can be scary. So, I have 3 sisters, and I visited 2 of them in California just a couple of weeks ago. And one of them was in the same abuse situation that I was. And she's handled it very differently. She didn't choose to go down a healing path, but instead to just move forward into her education, her career, her marriage, her children. And she's done very, very well for herself. And I love her so much, and I absolutely don't judge her. But she's well aware that she's chosen not to heal this piece. And I think that the way that she does it is she never stops, even when she's sick. So that's what I got to observe and notice this time, is that she just never stops. And I see that she's happy in so many ways and successful in so many ways. But I wonder what's lurking underneath and how will that eventually manifest? Because it will in one way or another.
Yeah, I'm also very familiar of this survival mechanism or coping mechanism of, it can come as a workaholic or being constantly busy and doing. So yeah, we don't have to face with the feeling, as you said, but it's really in stopping and taking taking a breath and really feeling what needs to be felt, that we can bring that that beautiful balance within us, which then of course manifests in our external environment as well. So yeah, I've been writing in my book, when I get to the heart chakra, that's exactly about the union, the inner union between the feminine and the masculine. And as I did with each chakra, I addressed a core wound that has to do with that energy center. And so for the heart, it was the sexuality wound, because we as a society, as a collective, been sexually abused in a way, whether directly or indirectly, for generations. And that comes from all the messages that we get growing up. As you mentioned, religion is a big one, but also even that inner conflict that many women have between, am I a sexual being? Is it okay to be sexual? How can I express my sexuality without it being too provocative or too outrageous? And can I embody that? I think, we all as women have been going through that inner turmoil regarding our own sexuality. Do you maybe want to talk about that? I know that, you've been experiencing the other spectrum of being maybe over-sexual, which is also just a response to being sexually abused, as well as the other extreme of being completely disconnected from the body, like myself. It's still just a response for sexuality that has been obscured or mutated in some ways, which I just want to say, as we've been discussing, it's not a life or it's not a death sentence. Yeah, it's not something that if we experience, we have to live with it for the rest of our lives. We actually can shift it and can transform it and quantum leap into healing. We don't have to go through a very long healing journey or very tedious and heartbreaking journey. But I really want to hone more into that inner struggle of especially women in our society that has the media as the, you know, one kind of way shower, which is completely not real, and then we have all the society messages that we all hear from since we are little, and how can we resolve that inner conflict?
That's a really great thing to explore. And what comes to mind when you talk about this is the difference between clothing for young girls and young boys. And so starting at a very young age, these little girls are being sexualized with very short shorts and things like that. And it's the messages that we get, the conflict, as you mentioned, the inner conflict. It's not okay to be a sexual being, but you are a sexual being, and not in a good way. It's like, it's a real challenge to untangle. And I'm going to illustrate this with another story, because I think that's how people can really grasp this concept. So I was just telling a story about my sister. She has a daughter who is 21, beautiful young woman. And we were all out on a boat together on Lake Tahoe. And this beautiful young woman was wearing a very skimpy swimsuit with utmost confidence and no shame. And I was like, how can this even be? Like, it really affected me deeply. I never could have been so confident and without shame in wearing something like that because of my past. And I was just really, I'm still really processing this and sitting with it and appreciating that however she seems to have bypassed some of these messages and conflict, she has. So I have a lot of hope. But as far as how can we resolve that within ourselves, we've got to untangle those messages that we got, especially from religion. And that's the whole big subject in and of itself, because one of the main points of religion has been to really suppress the life force energy and sexuality that is connected with it, because the life force energy and sexuality are so powerful. And the ancient churches that have been handed, all this has been handed down right through to today, did not want the power in the hands of the people. So to put sexuality in a tiny little box and say, you can only have it when you're married, and even then it's only for having children, and even then it's a sin, that took the power away from the people and imposed the shame. And this shame gets handed down generation after generation after generation through our cells, through our genes. And so we really have an opportunity now, I believe, in these incredible transformational times that we chose to be born into. We can completely upgrade all of that within ourselves. But it does take some untangling. And it is important to have support, to have mentorship, to have help to untangle these old stories. And again, it doesn't have to be talked about. It doesn't have to be rehashed or relived. It can be done quickly and simply. And I'm not saying it's without emotion, because that's the whole idea, is to access and release the emotions that are all tied up in this, so that we can find that path to freedom and really untangle all of the things that have been put on us that don't belong to us. They're just not ours. So it takes some thoughtfulness and care and some willingness to go inside and to look at these beliefs and release the ones that don't belong to you, because we don't have to keep them anymore. And then to take the steps towards whatever healing work is going to be most supportive to you. And if it feels scary, that's a good direction to go, because we have these aspects of ourselves that want to keep us safe, that want to keep us in our safe zone, in our comfort zone. And as long as we're in that zone, nothing's going to change. So it really does take stepping outside of our comfort zone to heal and to access that kind of freedom that is our birthright, that is possible for all of us. So taking the steps towards healing, even if it feels scary, but also at the same time, checking in, is this the right path for me? Is this the right healing path? Do I trust this teacher? Do I trust this mentor? Have I looked at this mentor's credentials? Do I know where this teacher comes from, or are they just hanging out a sign saying sexual healing, 5 cents? To really go and put yourself in the hands of someone who has the training, who has the experience, and who can hold you as you process through whatever needs to be released. Because once it's released, you've got a new life. You've got a new lease on life.
I couldn't agree more. I think I'm a living example of everything you just said, including, when I started my sexual healing journey, that was 25 years ago, and the internet was not so available, and I couldn't just go online and, find all those influencing people. And I really had to search and look around. And I must say that I came across some people that they reinforce my trauma. So it's really a good warning to really check who you're going to heal with, because some people, they do this kind of work because it's still part of their unhealed wounds that has to do with their sexuality, and you don't want that. You really want to work with somebody that can hold that safe space for you, free from personal agenda, and that can give you all the tools that you need. Because sexual healing, it's, sexual energy can be very overpowering, especially when there is inner activation, and you don't want to be triggered by your therapist in such a way that will actually push you even further from your healing. So it's really important to know that you're going to work with somebody that you can trust, as you said. But when you do find that person that you can trust, that can hold your hand through that journey, and of course Amrita is one of them, so if you feel called, please contact her and her school, because I know from personal experience and being her friend for some time that she has the integrity that's needed to support you through the journey. But once you have gone through that journey, and once you have cleared all that stands in your way, the freedom on the other side is, you can't even express it in words. You have to live it to understand it. It's a whole new world that is waiting for you once you let go of shame and pain and wounding, and the journey worth your while. It's really worth your while.
Yes, I can second that. It's very, very worthwhile. And you're never too young or too old to take it. The next workshop I'm teaching, my youngest is 27, my oldest is 67, 69. So really, there is no age too young to start, and the younger the better, really, because you've got your whole life ahead of you. And I wish that I had been able to start my journey when I was in my 20s instead of my late 30s. On some level, I nearly did, because I knew I had a problem. When I was 18 years old, I knew I had a problem, but I chose in that moment to ignore it and say, I'm just going to move ahead. And so for the next 20 years, that's how I spent my life, and left a trail of destruction in my wake. So, and on the other end of the spectrum, you're never, ever too old to do the work of sexual healing and awakening. And it's never too late to have a whole new life and sense of vitality and connection with people, and the sisterhood healing, the collective sisterhood healing that happens when women hold space for each other in this way, that spans generations of sisterhood trauma as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. The sister wound, I always wanted to say sister wound, which is also a big wound in our sisterhood collective, especially when we go back to 200 years of burning women on the stake. And more than that, there was a lot of, traumatizing and torturing and really forcing women to name other women and to betray other women, and that created a huge split between women. And so we really still healing that as a collective, and it is really in our sisterhood that we find that salvation, that we find our togetherness, that we find our cooperation, our community, our tribe. So that is very, very high value. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and as we approaching the end of our beautiful session today, I know that you have prepared something beautiful to share with our audience. So do you want to talk into it?
Yes, I have a 3 video series that I created called Ignite Your Sacred Feminine Fire. And this will take you very gently and slowly, step by step, through accessing your life force energy and just beginning to work with it in a way that is sweet and fun. So I invite you to check it out. It is my gift to you. I had a lot of fun making it. And in fact, I redid it recently and had fun remaking it. And I take you through some great processes that are simple, that don't take much time, and that you can use over and over again.
That sounds super, super juicy and yummy. So find the link on this page and go and download it. And before we wrap up, do you want to lead us through a short process just to have a feel of your beautiful work?
Yes, I would love to. I would love to. So if it's safe to do so, I want to invite you to just relax into your seat. Put your feet on the floor. Lower or close your eyes. And begin to deepen your breath. Take a nice deep breath and send that breath all the way into your womb, all the way into your yoni. And then slowly release it. And continue to breathe in this way and just notice how you feel. Notice if you start to drop in to feeling your body more. Notice if you start to drop into feeling your feet connected to the floor or the ground, because this is really the starting place for all things, being connected to the earth. And once we are connected to the earth, we can begin to explore other aspects of our bodies and our energy field. Continuing to breathe slowly and deeply. Send a breath now into your womb space. And if you'd like to just bring your hands to your lower belly, your womb space. And let your breath expand and push your hands out. And then just let your awareness and your attention also drop out of your head and slide down into this womb space. Again, noticing how you feel, noticing if your body is relaxing, your shoulders are relaxing. Continuing to invite your breath to swirl into your lower belly and womb. And just notice if there is a color that you feel tuned into as you're there in your womb space, or a particular emotion, or a sound, or a symbol, a texture, or a sensation of heat or cool. Continuing to breathe deeply. And within this deep space within yourself, inside of yourself, ask for a message. And then tune in. You may receive it in many different ways. It may be words or feeling or a knowing or an image. I'm just going to give a moment of silence for you to listen with all of your being. Continuing to breathe deeply. Trust whatever you receive. I've been feeling the presence of Isis in this space as I've been guiding you through this. She is one of my guides. And she's letting me know that I'm right on track, even when I don't feel like it. So tuning in for whatever message is for you in this moment and trusting it. Whatever it is, you didn't just make it up. It's been delivered to you in whatever form it was delivered. And if there was nothing at all that you could sense, just be with the quiet and peace of that. Continuing with your deep breath all the way into your womb. Letting your hands release now, if you were holding on to that space. And I want to invite you now to just keep your awareness here in your womb as you listen to the next interview or go about your day, and see what is different in your experience when you're in this space. Notice how your perception changes. Notice how your experience changes. Just notice. And check in to see if this is a place you might want to revisit more often. And taking one more slow, deep breath, inhale. And if you can, let it out with a sound.
Oh.
Notice the power of that. And just slowly now coming back into presence with yourself, with the space around you, and opening your eyes if they were closed. and notice how you feel. I know I feel grounded and calm, peaceful, and landed in my body. And you can do that anytime, anywhere, in seconds. Blessed be.
Thank you, Amrita. I also feel embodied and present and calm and relaxed and alive. And thank you for this beautiful journey. I also have Isis here on my altar holding space. So yeah, we're definitely on track there.
Yeah.
And so before we part, if people want to contact you, where they can find you best?
Yes, please visit my website, sacredfeminischool.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Amrita. It was a pleasure. It was such a pleasure having you.
I so appreciate you and have so much gratitude for what you're creating, Nunaisi, and I'm delighted to be part of it. Thank you so much for having me.
Ciao now. Bye.